Hi, students. Catherine Robertson here. How are you this wet weekend right here in Erie, PA? So we are into week 4, and as you can see, week 4 items were revealed earlier this week. And week 4 is chapters 9 and 10 from the text, our trusty textbook, right? And there are also, in this week, there are multiple short videos. So there is let's look at chapter 9 first, and I will talk about those items. And so chapter 9 really starts to look at this idea of strategic management and jumps into talking about a mission and a vision. And so there are 6 components to chapter 9. And if you look at, or when you look at the PowerPoint, you will see that there is a whole strategy cycle, right? And one of the things that we think about when we think about the strategy cycle, one of the key things is this idea of a vision and a mission for your company. And so, this idea of a vision, right? We look at this broad idea of why does the company exist, right? And so that's where we get this idea of the vision for the company. And we come up with some sort of phrase. There are a few examples in the text. And then we get something that's a bit more focused. And that is how we come up with, the idea of the focused idea is how will we then accomplish our vision, right? And that is through our action of a mission. And so you will see a few examples here, the Disney example, and the IKEA example. IKEA, most of you probably are familiar with IKEA. So when we think about the vision, it's to create a better, this is right from IKEA, right? To create a better everyday life for many people. And so that is their vision, right? To create a better life for many people. And then the focused idea, which is their mission, is we shall offer a wide range of well-designed functional home furnishing products at prices so low that as many people as possible will be able to afford them. So that is then their mission, their strategy, right? And so there are a few different examples of strategies. We've talked about Porter before, and Porter's 5 forces. There is the PESTEL, the PESTEL, and resources and capabilities. So a couple different ideas. There's a Disney example as well when we start to talk about the vision and how it flows into the mission. And the other thing is this idea of the star, the question mark, cash cow, and the dog, right? There are different types of products, and we see that in an X and Y axis graph on page 296 of your text. But, it starts to talk about these different types of products that companies might have, or even it could be services if it's a service-based company. And so when you look at those items and you're going through chapter 9, there are some great examples in chapter 9. Also the SMART framework, when we are talking about specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Those are our the SMART framework that helps us set goals within a company. And so when you're looking through chapter 9 in the text, and then you go through the PowerPoint in chapter 9, there's also a short video on corporate strategy, the role of strategy in business, which ties nicely into chapter 9. The homework for chapter 9, page 301, questions 1 through 6. And so then as you move into chapter 10, so chapter 10, I have 4 different videos, and I believe one of them, the Kim Davis videos, actually I pulled it from your PowerPoint directly. It was very, I thought, impactful video. So there are 4 there. Max Weber, bureaucracy, right? And so this is looking at chapter 10 then. We start to look at organizational structure, and there are 3 sections here. Mechanistic versus organic organizational structures. What are the fundamental dimensions of change, and how do managers deal with change? And so this is really when we think about organizations and how they evolve, right? And so then there's a short video on organizational life cycle, which ties nicely with chapter 10. And organizational life cycle is on page 315, a nice pictorial there talking about this idea of entrepreneurship from the startup to survival and early success, and then really this idea of sustained business practices and how we move forward in those. And there are a few different examples in 10 chapter 10, that go along with the models. For instance, Kotter's model, Kotter, his model on page 325 is it's widely used in this day and age, right? And there are 8 steps to the Kotter model. So make sure that you review the Kotter model on page 325. These numbers are so tiny and I don't have my reading glasses on, right? But Kotter's model is a great one to align with. And there's a couple other examples of models for chapter 10. Chapter 10 is a little bit shorter than the other chapters. That's why I have some short videos for you. Christensen's idea of disruptive innovation, right? And how that comes into play when there are new products that disrupt the marketplace. For instance, the smartphone, right? When we went, and actually the cell phone, the internet, things that completely changed our world, right? Those are disruptive innovations. And so thinking about some of those items, that the automobile was a disruptive innovation, right? Changed the way we do things. And so chapter 10 is a lot about change. So make sure you check out those 4 short videos, and then you review the chapter 10 PowerPoint after reading the chapter 10 in the text. The homework for chapter 10, so remember, make those one doc and then submit. Page 334 and 335, 1, 3, 5, and 9. So there's only 4 there for chapter 10. And I have a spot there for submissions. Also, as per usual, we have a discussion for these chapters / this week 4. And so with the week 4 discussion post, which I see some of you have already posted in, you've been, and I'm going to click on that one quickly. So I have a few folks that have already posted. Elijah, David, Lindsay, Mariana. Great job on some of these responses, by the way. Anyway, you've been assigned the task of working with a company. So I would say read chapters 9 and 10 and do the work for those before you attempt the discussion. It'll be easier that way, but you can do it however you'd like. You've been assigned the task of working with a company that had a traditional functional organizational structure with sales, marketing, product development, finance and accounting, and operations teams reporting to a vice president, who then reports to the CEO. The company wants to move to a matrix organization, so that's where we have not only do we have the top-down structure, we also have then lateral teams that come into play. So it's like a grid work. This idea of a matrix versus a traditional structure. And so that is kind of outlined in chapter 10. You should see some things that will help you with this discussion. You've been asked to comment on how to manage the change, right? The company wants to move to a matrix organization that will retain the efficiencies of the functional organization, but also then have groups of employees based on product teams, right? And so you've been asked to comment on how to manage this change and how to communicate and respond to employees' concerns. Specifically, you need to address what are the desired impacts or benefits of how this will work, changing over to a matrix organization, and what are the emotions that your employees may have about this organizational change, and how might these emotions impact then the organization and its operations? Because nobody likes change, right? It's tricky. So if your organization some of you may have been through this at your organizations, where they maybe are implementing new systems, right? Or teams are being divided up differently. And so organizational change can be tricky, and there are a lot of emotions that can be flowing. So try to answer those. I have in here a minimum 2 to 3 sentences for your discussion posts, and you're always welcome to chime in on other folks' discussion posts. And that is what we have for week 4. Again, this week's items, I believe I have them due next Friday. We have July 4th this week, and so the college is closed. And so that is a Thursday. And so 7/5, which is a Friday, I believe. Let me just double check. 7/5 is a Friday. And so your homework this upcoming week will be due next Friday, so July 5th. If you do run into any trouble with the homework, or for some reason getting something done or something comes up, reach out to me. Communication is key. It's another thing that we are working on here as college students, right? Is communication. And it gets you pretty far, right? Making sure that you communicate with the school, make sure that you communicate with your professors, instructors, whomever can help you, move forward in your college endeavors. Also, you can reach me, 814-490-6473. Shoot me a text. If you need to, shoot me an email, crobertson@ec3pa.org. And I'm usually next week, it'll be a little bit tricky being on campus, but if you need me, I could meet up with you. And don't forget the project that will be due at the end of the term, because we're flying right through, right? The project is you pick a chapter and you are going to develop a PowerPoint outline for that chapter, right? Your own PowerPoint and how you would then present that chapter.